In the 1960s, the post-war Viewmaster viewer remained popular, bringing worldwide travel views in 3D and Kodachrome colour to millions of living rooms. The Telstar 1 international satellite was launched in 1962, providing the first live transatlantic television feed. Soon afterwards, French cinema gave us Le Jetée, constructed almost entirely from still photos and telling the story of a post-nuclear war experiment in time travel. The British film Blow Up featured photography as its theme, reflecting the real-life photo scene that made British photographer David Bailey famous. Articulating the political and cultural upheavals of the 60s, photography responded to the experiments of conceptual artists. The term conceptual photography distinguishing art photography from photojournalism. American pop artist Andy Warhol found more than his widely quoted 15 minutes of fame with his photographs and films. To produce his silkscreens, Warhol made photographs with a specific model of Polaroid camera kept in production specially for him. Voraciously photographing visitors to his art factory, he also made more than 60 films, the most popular being Chelsea Girls, comprising 2 strips of film, the different stories being projected in tandem. In the film world, horror movies gradually changed, from traditional hokum to the psychological. Science fiction films explored period time travel with The Time Machine, imagined future society in Alphaville, the post-apocalyptic Planet of the Apes, and the groundbreaking 2001: A Space Odyssey. A chilling account of a nuclear attack scenario, Failsafe contrasted with the black comedy Dr. Strangelove and its atom bomb theme. For pure entertainment, Hollywood musicals included West Side Story, Sweet Charity, and The Sound of Music, while Britain promoted its own new music worldwide. In 1963, Kodak's Instamatic camera with easy-to-load film cartridge was hugely successful, introducing a generation to low-cost photography. 2 years later, Kodak revolutionized the amateur film market with cartridge-loading Super 8. In the world of espionage, hidden cameras became increasingly ingenious, and the museum's collection of spy cameras is second to none. The 1960s was the last decade in which the Western remained popular. In 1969, the masterful film Night of Counting the Years epitomised the success of Egyptian cinema at this time. That same year saw the foundation of Qatar television. As the space race continued, Hasselblad developed a 70mm data camera for the Apollo 11 moon mission. 4 cameras were used to take 1,400 exposures. The first moon images by Neil Armstrong remain the most recognisable ever taken. 600 million people watched the 1969 television transmissions from the moon. This small step for a man proved to be a giant leap for photography. That same year, Bell Laboratories invented the charge-coupled device, the image sensor at the heart of all digital cameras. In the 1970s, cinema looked to past decades for stories. As cinema said goodbye to the Beatles, documented the new stars of rock, and joined the disco craze, young filmmakers also looked back at changes in society reflected in the pop-rock era of their youth. But the future, with its opportunities and dangers, was ever present. In 1977, a new cultural icon was born, Star Wars, the first use of motion-controlled camera technique. One of the most successful and influential films of all time, many original action props used in the first Star Wars films will be shown. In the 1970s, IMAX giant screen movies were launched, and to provide programming variety, cinemas with multiple auditoriums became common. In 1975, Kodak engineer Steve Sasson invented the first digital still camera, changing photography forever. The 1970s Rolling Stone photographs by American portrait photographer Annie Leibovitz helped define the look of influential magazines. In the 1970s and 80s, colour photography, previously frowned upon by critics, experienced a boom, directed by the curiosity to experiment. By allowing the world's colours to speak for the character and flavour of contemporary life, photographers succeeded in conveying the atmosphere of the subjects photographically. 1980s British cinema tackled themes of imperialism, love and memory, and the dark side of Victorian Britain, triumphing at the Oscars with Chariots of Fire. Science fiction remained popular, with the industry adopting computer graphic methods and design. Tron was derived from the video game craze, the first live-action film to make extensive use of computer-generated imagery. Some 80s horror films have become classics of the genre. In 1981, Sony unveiled a prototype of the world's first still video camera. The Mavica recorded analog images on 2-inch floppy disks. In the 1980s, self-dramatization, narrative tableau, photojournalism and still life came to the fore. Typical is the 1985 refugee camp portrait of Sharbat Gula, the Afghan girl. The first Arab satellite was launched for the Arab League in 1985, eventually providing coverage to more than 100 countries. Here, Isaac Asimov promotes one of the first popular home computers, opening up a new era of communication, just as domestic video camcorders became widely accessible, replacing home cinefilm. In the 1980s, Robert Mapplethorpe's figure studies caused considerable debate. Less challenging were his classic flower pictures. In the early 90s, the internet became accessible, expanding explosively. Adobe Photoshop led to a major advance in digital manipulation of photographic images, and Hollywood's Terminator 2 made extensive use of CGI, a technique that was even more important for the creation of Jurassic Park. Al Jazeera satellite channel was launched following the closure of the BBC's Arab language television station, and in 1997 Qatar TV became the Qatar General Broadcasting and Television Corporation. By this time 900 million television sets were in use worldwide. In the late 1990s, DVDs replaced videocassettes for pre-recorded TV movie viewing. The Matrix used bullet time, a technique first explored by chronophotographer Muybridge in the 1880s. And Hollywood reflected on its past. While Mickey celebrated 75 years, animation was changing to digital techniques, replacing the hand-painted images used since the early days of the industry. At the start of the new century, superheroes, science fiction and fantasy dominated the movies. Traditional characters shared the big screen with new heroes. The Lord of the Rings trilogy made use of motion capture techniques, further developed in Avatar, which broke box office records. YouTube expanded to become a major cultural phenomenon, with hundreds of hours of material uploaded every minute. Cameras now incorporated new features such as GPS and face recognition. In 2009, the common shape of television and computer screens had become wider, and time shifting much easier, creating new patterns of TV viewing. In the new century, 3D was, at last, widely adopted for cinema movies. In 2010, Instagram, with its distinctive square format, made sharing of photos easier. The Doha Film Institute was founded, providing funding for movie production in Qatar. During the first years of the 21st century, small computers became tablets with integral cameras. Arab photography blossomed during this decade, gaining wider recognition and praise, and developing particular aesthetics. Social networking sites played a major role in publicising Green Movement protests in Iran's re-election, documenting a digital record of their struggle. In recent years, mainstream movies have turned towards digital production, and cinema circuits have phased out celluloid film, just as Indian cinema, the world's biggest film industry, celebrated its centenary. In 2013, Al Jazeera Media Network announced the purchase of Current TV in the United States. Now, 1,000 years after Alhazen's Camera Obscura, technological convergence has arrived. Television is watched on computers, the web is viewed on TV and portable devices, photos and videos can be taken and viewed on mobiles, and snaps compete with Vine micro videos.